So we are on the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita. And last time we discussed that part of the fourth chapter where Krishna declares clearly to Arjuna that he is indeed the Supreme Lord who reincarnates again and again for the sake of delivering his saintly people, crushing the evildoers, and re-establishing principles of religion. And those who understand the divine nature of his transcendental appearance and activities, when they leave this body, remember him and are free from the cycle of birth and death. They attain salvation. They are liberated. Further, Krishna also tells him that those who succeed in doing so are those who are Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha Manamaya Upashrita Bahavo Jnana Tapasa Putamadbhavam Agatah. That the nature of these people is that by surrender to Krishna in this form, they become freed from attachment, fear, and anger. They are fully absorbed in Krishna and taking refuge in Him. They become purified and thus attain pure love of me. Because as people develop love of God to that extent, they know God. Naham veder na tapasa na danena na cha ijjaya. Bhaktyatva ananya shakya aham eva vido Arjuna. You shall not know me by studying the Vedas or scriptures. You won't know me by performing tapasya or austerities. I remain unknown to people who keep giving in charity or performing ritualistic worship. I am reached only by those who have unalloyed, undeviating, pure love of me. Bhaktyatva ananya shakya aham eva vidu Arjuna. So Krishna has clearly stated in the Bhagavad-Gita that you know me as I am only through pure love. So this love comes through purification, and the purification comes through accepting Krishna in his incarnation as the Supreme Lord and living by the instructions he has given here in the Bhagavad-Gita. And so Krishna explains that ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajami aham mam vartmanu vartante manushya partha sarvasah. And so Krishna says, everybody, according to how they surrender to me, I give them rewards accordingly. So if you worship me as the Supreme Lord, as Krishna, you will attain refuge in me and be freed from the cycle of birth and death, attaining salvation and liberation. If you desire things of this material world, as most people do, then Krishna has created a system whereby you keep worshipping the Devatas. And by the worship of Devatas, you will get your desires fulfilled on this earth. And by fulfilling your desires upon this earth, you will be happy and continue to live here birth after birth after birth. And for those who want to live here, as well as for those who want to be liberated, Krishna has created according to the three gunas. All of us actually are composite beings. We are not just the soul, but we are also composed of a material envelope. And this material envelope, Bhumi upon alo ayur kham mano buddhirevacha ahankara ityame bhinna prakriti ashtada. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. These are part of the Prakriti. They are not you. You are indeed aparayam itastvanyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhutam mahabhavo yayedam dharyate jagat. You are part of Krishna's superior energy, which is sustaining and maintaining creation. And because of the Prakriti you carry around with you, this Prakriti helps to divide the four divisions of society. And therefore, Krishna only gives a hint here that you must perform your activities in this world according to your Prakriti. The fish cannot come and run on land, and the deer should not try to swim in the ocean. So also, all those who have a particular Prakriti for which determine the purpose of their birth should not work contrary to their nature. And contrary to their nature means there Krishna explains later that he has divided society into four divisions, not according to birth, but according to the nature of their intrinsic nature and the activities that they perform. And thus, performing those activities in a spirit of devotion and renunciation, you attain union with God. But Krishna explains that indeed, although Krishna does not need to do any work, Krishna continues to work when he appears within the world. And otherwise also, Krishna is constantly directing Prakriti. So there is no work that affects Krishna. There is no karma that affects Krishna. There is no compulsion for Krishna to work. And he does not aspire for any fruits of action either. And one who understands this will also thus act within the world without becoming greedy for getting the fruits of action and remaining in the world and becoming attached to it. So Krishna explains in chapter 15 that evam gnatva kritam karma purvair mumukshibi kuru karmaiva tasmatvam purvati purvataram kritam purvai purvataram kritam. So all liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding that you need to act within the world without desiring the fruits. And thus, by acting in this manner, they purified themselves and attained salvation. Kayena manasa, whether it's with the body, Kayena manasa buddhaya, kevalair indriyarapi, yogina karma kurvanti, sangam tyaktva atma shuddhe. Even yogis, Krishna explains, act within the world. They don't remain silent. They don't remain renounced to the world. They have not given up their duties. They continue to work within the world, despite the fact that they are yogis, and they do that for the sake of purification. So Krishna explains in this text 15 that even those who are free, liberated, they believed that it was still possible to purify themselves further while they were living on this earth. And therefore, they continue to work in a spirit of devotion and renunciation. This is very, very important. Very often people think, I am liberated, I am attained Jivan Mukti. And I have explained to you earlier also that in the Bhagavad-Gita, while Krishna has explained many levels of liberated beings or many types of liberated beings with similar characteristics from all different darshanas, Krishna clearly has never mentioned the word Jivan Mukt. In fact, he goes further to say that you should never give up yagna dana tapah. Yagya dana tapa karma na karyam tyajam eva tat yagya dana tapa karma pavanani manishina. That the activities of performing work as sacrifice, giving and adding value to the world, which is dana, and tapasya, which is restraining yourself from being indulging in sense gratification and getting attached to the world. He says these three activities purify even great souls. So therefore, Krishna says that even if you think that you are liberated, you must continue to act within the world. Do not renounce the world. Do not shave your head. Do not wear orange robes or white robes or any other costume and start walking on the road or in the forests or in the Himalayas. You must live in society and you must attain perfection by doing your duty. Yatah pravritir bhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam swakarmana abhyarchaya siddhim vindati manavah. That each person by performing his God-given duties in a spirit of sacrifice to the all-pervading Lord, they attain perfection. So Krishna emphasizes that work is the means to salvation. And even if you think you have attained salvation, you must continue to work and perform the duties that God has given you. Having done this, Krishna in the following verses now teaches us the secret of how to perform action without becoming entangled in the consequent karmic or without becoming entangled in the karmic consequences. Of course, the subject of karma is a different subject and it's also a difficult subject to understand. But you will find in my collection of lectures that I have spoken at least several times. I think there are 3 consecutive lectures on the law of karma. But the point is, Krishna speaks in the Bhagavad Gita to bust the law of karma, to teach you how to transcend karma, to help you understand that in the performance of your activities, if you happen to perform what some people consider bad karma, if it is your duty, if it is in the performance of your God-given duties, there is no bad karma. And in the following verses, Krishna is giving very, very, very important secrets on how we need to work within the world without becoming entangled in karma. So Krishna begins in chapter 4, verse 16, And he says, Kim karma kim akarmeti kavayo apya artha mohitaha. Tatte karma pravakshami yajgnatva mokshase shubhat. Even intelligent people are bewildered in determining what traps you in karma and what frees you from karma. Please understand this very, very important thing, because every Bhagavad Gita you have, barring none, will be mistranslating this verse. So I must explain to you that in truth, it's very difficult to understand Bhagavad Gita because the Sanskrit words in the Bhagavad Gita have meaning according to context. And by meaning according to context, it means that every word has got compound meanings. It has got many meanings depending upon how it is used. Not only in Bhagavad Gita, but also in the Upanishads. In fact, if you go through the Upanishads from the beginning of the Upanishads, there are 220 of them. You will find that the Upanishads speak of Atma as breath. They speak of it as a body. They speak of it as the ego or the self. They speak of Atma as the individual soul. They speak of the Atma as the Paramatma or the super soul. So, how will you know what the meaning is if you do not understand the context? Therefore, simply using a Sanskrit editor is not going to cut it. And therefore, most of the Bhagavad Gitas, I would say almost all of the Bhagavad Gitas, are mistranslated in one way or another. Now, very clearly here in chapter 4, text 16, he says, Kim karmeti, kim akarmeti. Now, karma has multiple meanings. Karma could mean work. Karma could mean karma kanda or the rituals of karma which are prescribed in the Vedas. Karma could also mean the consequences of work, which is the law of karma. So, which one does it mean here? So, Krishna is explaining right now to Arjun how to become free by using karma as a yajna. Krishna is explaining to Arjun how he can become free from the law of karma, from entanglement with karma, despite the fact that he is performing his duties. Sorry. So he says, Kim karmeti, kim akarmeti. Which are the activities that bind you to this world? And which are the activities that free you from this world? Even the intelligent, kavayo, apya atra mohitaha. Even intelligent people are bewildered by trying to understand what binds you to karma and what frees you from karma. Tatte karma pravikshami yajgnatva mokshase shubhat. And this, Krishna says, is what he is going to explain to you. So once again, Krishna is explaining, Karmano hi api bodhavyam cha vikarmana, akarmanascha bodhavyam gahana karmano gati. So he says, indeed, the intricacies of action and what binds you to the law of karma is very difficult to understand. Therefore, you should clearly understand which are the activities that lead to good karma, what are the activities that lead to bad karma, And thirdly, which are the activities that free you from karma? This is very difficult to understand because these are very intricate and require great depth of understanding as well as explanation. So it's clear that when you act within the world, you incur good karma. And when you act within the world, often inadvertently, you incur bad karma. But Krishna is giving us an opt out. He's giving us an option by which we can become free of good and bad karma. Shubha ashubha phalaireva moksha se karma bandhane sannyasa yoga yukte na vimukto mame vaishyasi. That if you learn how to perform those actions in a spirit of sacrifice and devotion to the all-pervading Lord, then you become free from Shubha and Ashubha. You become free from the good karma and the bad karma consequences. And in this spirit of renunciation of both good and bad karma, you attain salvation, liberation, and union with me. So Krishna is saying, you should know what is the difference between these three. And then Krishna goes on in chapter 4, text 18 to say, Karmanya akarma yaha pashyed akarmani cha karma yaha sa buddhiman manusheshu sa yukta kritsna karma krit. One who understands how to become free from the law of karma even while he performs action, and who understands indeed that even if he doesn't perform action, he gets involved in the law of karma. Such a person is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental positions, although he performs all activities. I'm repeating this to you because every Bhagavad Gita I have seen has mistranslated it to some extent. It is not who sees inaction in action or action in inaction, etc., etc. Here it's more you translate it in context. That one who knows how to perform actions in the world without becoming involved in karma, and one who understands that without performing action you can still get involved in the law of karma, such a person is intelligent among men, and he is in a transcendental position, although he is engaged in the world in all kinds of activities. So this is the uniqueness of Bhagavad Gita, and this is the unique message which you cannot find in in most of the other scriptures. I don't see actually in any of the 220 Upanishads, there is nothing which surpasses this as far as wisdom and brilliance is concerned. Because many people started renouncing the world following the Shramana philosophies, which today are existent as Buddhism and Jainism. And similarly, not understanding the Bhagavad Gita led to many people renouncing the world and becoming monks and sannyasis even in the Sanatan order. But this brilliant concept of performing action without getting involved in karma is unique to the Bhagavad Gita. You won't find it anywhere else, and you better understand it properly, because by living in the world, how are you going to transcend this world? by continuing to perform your God-given duties in a spirit of sacrifice and devotion to the all-pervading Lord. Indeed, Krishna has already stated in the 3rd chapter that those who abstain from action but keep on thinking of worldly things, they are known as mithyachara or hypocrites. So don't be a hypocrite by giving up the world when your mind will keep on chasing the things of the world. Live in the world. And even while you live in the world like a lotus leaf, which lies in water but never gets wet. Brahmanya adhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti yaha lipite na sa papena padma patram ivam vasi. When all your actions are offered to the all-pervading Lord, then what happens is you live in this world without sin, just as a lotus leaf lives in water without getting wet. So, verse 19 in chapter 4 is a very beautiful verse, and that gives you the secret. What is the secret? The secret is if you act without selfish desire, and that may be for the performance of your duties in your job, in your profession, serving your family, serving your society, serving your nation. As long as it is without personal selfish desire, that action is a-karmic. It is without karmic consequences. And that is explained here in chapter 4, text 19. Yasye sarve samarambha kama sankalpa varjitah jnana agni dagdha karmani tam ahu panditam buddha. Who is a panditam? Who is a Buddha? Who has truly understood the secret of how to act in the world and yet remain free from karmic consequences? That is the person who acts within the world without any desire, without kama sankalpa varjitah. When he is free of any selfish desire, he performs work. Then he is said to be a realized sage. Please correct your translations as you go on. Otherwise, you'll remain constantly forever in ignorance. So, those who perform actions selflessly as duty, without any selfish personal desire, right? Without seeking the fruit, without thinking of themselves as doers, such people have attained perfect knowledge. And such people are acting in the world without the karmic consequences. And Krishna further elaborates, Tyaktva karma phalasangam nitya tripto nirashrayah karmanya abhipravrittopi naiva kinchit karoti saha. Having abandoned all attachments to the results of his activities. What do you mean by results of the activities? Not just the fruit. Krishna has earlier said, Siddhya asiddhyo samo bhutva. Whether you're successful or whether you're not successful, you remain equanimous. Samatvam. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Yoga is equanimity of mind. So tyaktva karma phala sangam nitya tripta nirashrayah. Always content, always fulfilled, not dependent on anything externally. Such a person is fully engaged in his work, and yet he performs and is not involved in any karmic consequence. And Krishna explains now in chapter 4, text 21. Nirashiryat chittatma tyakta sarva parigraha shariram kevalam karma kurvan napnoti kilvisham. Such an enlightened person who is without desire for any fruit, whose mind and intelligence are completely controlled, Chitatma, having given up all sense of ownership, Tyaktva Sarva Parigraha, he has given up all sense of attachment. Shariram Kevalam Karma. Now, here it is translated as acting only for the bare necessities of life. And you will find similar translations in many other Bhagavad-Gitas. Shariram Kevalam Karma does not mean acting for the bare necessities of life. Otherwise, it would not be a book meant for people in the world who are princes and kings. It would not be Raj Vidya Raj Guyam if it was Shariram Kevalam Karma, meaning acting only for bare necessities of life. Shariram Kevalam Karma means you are acting without ego. You are only physically acting, but there is no ego involved in your actions. So when there is no ego involved in your actions, you do not think I am the doer. You do not think indeed that you are acting for some fruit or desire or even for success. Then you are acting purely without ego in a spirit of devotion and renunciation, in sacrifice as an offering to this all-pervading Lord. He says, Kuruvan napnoti kilbisham. Such a person is unaffected by sinful reactions completely. And so Krishna continues to describe such a person. He says that such a person is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord, who is free from duality, who does not hate anyone. He is steady in both success and failure, and he is never entangled, although he performs all actions. Yadricha labh santushto dvandvatita vimatsara. Samau siddhav asiddhav cha kritvapina nibadyate. He is satisfied with things that happen by themselves. He goes with the flow. He goes with life. He understands that not a blade of grass moves without God's consent. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, Tena vina tranamapi na chalati. Not a blade of grass moves without God's consent. And who does not hate anyone, who does not see the dualities of life, of heat and cold and joy and sorrow and honor and dishonor, he just sees them as God's hand working within the world. He is happy with success and he is happy with failure. He's never entangled in karma, although he performs all types of actions. And he goes on to say, Brahma arpanam Brahma vir Brahma gnau Brahmana hutam Brahma eva tena gantavyam Brahma karma samadhina. Such a person who is fully absorbed in divinity attains the spiritual kingdom because of his fullest contributions to spiritual activities. Whatever he is doing, he sees that God is doing it through him. Whatever action he is doing, he sees it as a divine function that the Lord is performing. So, just like when you perform a fire sacrifice, you're offering into the fire, you're offering havan into the fire. Into the havan fire, you are offering samagri, you are offering ghee. All of these things, all are part of divinity. Similarly, when you perform your work in that manner, all your work is an offering to God. And thus, this remembrance of God and forgetfulness of your ego self brings you purity, salvation, liberation, and freedom from the cycle of birth and death. So I will pause here. If you have any queries, please feel free to ask me.
Thank you, Shantuji, for today's session. My first question is, in your opinion, how can one balance their duty with being detached in today's world?
We are not telling you to be detached. We're telling you to remember God. Detachment will follow as a consequence. I've said this before, but I'm repeating this verse. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prajita Janayati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayada Hitukam. You develop attachment to God and detach, and the required detachment will come to you unsought. So just do your duty and do it in a spirit of sacrifice and devotion to God without selfish desire. And spontaneously, naturally, effortlessly, you will find that detachment will be appearing before you.
Shantuji, you also spoke about controlling one, having a control over their ego. So, how can one achieve this? How can one have control over their ego and sense of
You
self?
can't control the ego. You have to remember God, and that God will control the ego. So when you remember God, spontaneously and naturally, the self is forgotten. Provided you remember God without seeking any fruits, without seeking any benefits, without seeking anything, you remember God and we get absorbed in Him. Automatically, God will give you both spiritual knowledge and detachment.
We also spoke about karma today. So, I wanted to ask you that can our past karmas affect our life, our present life, and how can one get out of this karmic cycle?
The karma is a complex subject. It cannot be discussed in one question answer, but I have given 3 continuous lectures on the law of karma. I would advise you to watch them and you will get a clear understanding of what karma is about. But essentially, karma is when you believe that you are the ego and you act within the world and get entangled further in Prakriti. When you act without ego in remembrance of God, you become free from ego and you become free from Prakriti, and your actions become divine.
Thank you so much for today's enlightening session, Shantuji. And our viewers, I would request you all to please stay connected with us and do watch us next Thursday at 8 a.m.